Caitlin Clark is driving the WNBA insane. It's to the point that she may need to step away from the WNBA, have a billionaire come in that has the money to prove a point, and say, Caitlin, I'll pay you $50 million just to see if the WNBA can make it without you. Let's go create a completely different league and expose the hell out of the WNBA just to embarrass this Angel Reese girl that Jameel Hill just said she could go down as a Michael Jordan.
Caitlin Clark just became the scapegoat for the WNBA's completely botched contract negotiations. The same players and media who spent 2 years treating her like she didn't belong are now pointing fingers at her when their labor talks fell apart. Word is she's seriously considering taking her talents to Europe if this mess doesn't get sorted out. Think about this for a second. The league that rode her success to a massive $2.2 billion television contract might actually lose her because they couldn't stop tearing down their biggest star. Front office executives are genuinely freaking out right now, and they should be. When Clark potentially walks away because the WNBA destroyed itself from the inside, who really gets hurt? The bitter veterans who resented her dominance, or the league that let this toxic situation spiral out of control?
So the WNBPA is taking to social media, taking to the public. And I want to share with you guys the most recent letter that was issued from the WNBPA. At midnight, the 2020 WNBPA collective bargaining agreement will expire. Despite demonstrating our willingness to compromise in order to get a deal done, the WNBA and its teams have failed to meet us at the table with the same spirit and seriousness. Instead, they've remained committed to undervaluing player contributions, dismissing player concerns, and running out the clock. Today's display of an inflatable rat, a universal symbol of labor protest outside of the NBA store, calls attention to how the league and its teams have handled these negotiations. By delaying and clinging to the status quo, they are jeopardizing the livelihoods of players and the trust and investment of fans, all in the name of preserving regressive.
The WNBA finds itself facing a nightmare scenario they never thought possible because they assumed their golden goose would stick around forever. Caitlin Clark, the single player who brought millions of viewers and mainstream attention the league had been desperately chasing for decades, is seriously considering whether European basketball offers a better path than dealing with the absolute circus that's currently destroying American women's professional hoops. This possibility has sent genuine shockwaves through league offices and should absolutely terrify anyone whose career depends on the WNBA surviving this mess.
It is overdue. I feel like the players have lost sense of reality a little bit, because imagine putting up a rat that a lot of unions do when it comes to like schools, construction companies, people that are making a lot less than the kind of money that the WNBA players are making. They got offered a max salary of over $1 million. Their max salary last year was $250,000, and now it's over $1 million. And then on top of that, the average salary is around $500,000. And then you're putting a rat out in public display. I don't know. I feel like you've lost sense of reality a little bit. That's not the real world. The real world does not want to hear constantly about millionaires' problems.
So let's break down what's actually happening right now. Contract negotiations have blown up spectacularly. The deadline passed without any deal getting done. Players are getting hammered for asking for things that seem impossible. The union is shooting back that ownership doesn't respect their value. Free agency is completely stuck because nobody has any clue what salary rules will look like going forward. Right in the middle of this complete disaster, certain players and media personalities decided Caitlin Clark should be the one taking blame for negotiations falling apart. This decision might end up being remembered as the most devastating mistake in league history.
We're saying, hey, this could be Caitlin Clark's fault. And before I just flipped and lost my mind, I had to sit and think about it. And you know what, Caitlin Clark, this is all happening and it's your fault. You're the reason, your greatness, your star power, you are the reason for there being no 2026 WNBA season as of now. Because had you not been such a great player and a big star, these women wouldn't be demanding all of the stuff that they are demanding right now. So, yeah, I guess technically
Clark brought more attention to the WNBA in one season than the entire previous decade managed to accomplish. Her games regularly drew millions of people to their televisions. Every single arena the Fever played in was packed to capacity. Her merchandise broke every sales record the league had. Television networks invested $2.2 billion in broadcast deals specifically because of the audience explosion she triggered. Every piece of financial growth the league experienced can be traced directly to the mainstream excitement she generated. So, how did the veteran stars respond to all this success? With jealousy, resentment, and physical intimidation that repeatedly went way over the line, dirty plays that would have been handled completely differently if anyone else had been the target. Established players complaining about special treatment while simultaneously whining that she was making too much money. The hypocrisy was absolutely stunning. They wanted every benefit from the popularity she created, while hating her for being the reason any of it happened in the first place.
That the WNBA has hostile players, bro. We all witnessed it during the 2025 and 24 season. These players pretty much hate Caitlin Clark with a passion. And I'm here to tell you right now, the hate is growing even stronger because many people in the Players Association and people in the media is blaming Caitlin Clark for potentially being the one holding out when it comes to this CBA not getting done. Now, the players had a chance to go on a strike.
Now that negotiations have completely crashed and burned, Clark is suddenly being painted as the person who messed everything up. The logic makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. She hasn't made any public demands. She hasn't threatened to sit out games. She kept quiet while everything exploded around her. But facts don't matter when you need someone to blame, so your own mistakes stay buried. So Clark becomes the fall guy for labor discussions she's barely even involved in, while union leaders with obvious conflicts of interest avoid taking responsibility for their failures.
Said no thank you to the NBA offering her a chance to participate in their three-point shooting contest. Now think how amazing that is. If I'd have said to you a couple years ago, yeah, the NBA, to save their All-Star weekend, they're going to ask a WNBA player to join the three-point shooting contest.
This is exactly where the European option becomes a real threat. European leagues have been going after WNBA talent for years now. The money often beats American contracts, especially when you factor in free housing, travel arrangements, and dints that come automatically with overseas deals. The whole experience tends to be more enjoyable without the brutal media attention that follows you everywhere in America. Plus, the competition level is high enough to keep elite skills sharp while avoiding the chaos that's currently choking the life out of the WNBA. For someone in Clark's situation, heading overseas fixes multiple problems all at once. She gets away from an environment where veteran players obviously can't stand her success. She avoids the nightmare created by labor negotiations that could drag on forever. She makes equal or better money without dealing with the hostility she faced all season in Indiana. And she continues playing elite basketball while her global brand keeps growing through sponsorship deals. The panic this scenario is causing among WNBA executives and players makes perfect sense. They know exactly what happens when Clark leaves. Television ratings immediately crash back to pre-Clark basement levels. Casual fans who only tuned in to watch her stop paying attention and vanish completely. Sponsorship deals that were signed expecting continued growth get restructured or canceled entirely. The whole economic foundation built on assumptions about sustained popularity falls apart. Clark leaving would expose just how fragile the WNBA's recent success really was. It wasn't genuine growth driven by everyone improving together. It was one athlete capturing public attention in ways nobody else could match. Take that athlete away and you're left with a league most mainstream sports fans still completely ignore. This reality should have demanded basic common sense from leadership. Protect the person who's generating your success. Don't let bitter veterans create a toxic work environment. Handle flagrant fouls appropriately instead of letting violence get out of control. None of this required genius-level strategy. It just required not actively destroying yourself. Instead, we witnessed 2 seasons of Clark getting mistreated while leadership did basically nothing meaningful to stop it. Commissioner Kathy Engelbert offered meaningless sound bites about physicality being traditional. Officials allowed contact that would have resulted in suspensions in any other context. Media personalities downplayed her impact while promoting players who couldn't draw remotely comparable audiences. The message was unmistakable. We'll use your popularity, but we won't actually respect or protect you. Now that incompetence threatens to destroy everything they built. If Clark decides Europe makes more sense, she's gone permanently. Once you leave, momentum shifts and new opportunities open up. She has worldwide appeal that exists completely independent of the WNBA. She doesn't need American women's basketball nearly as much as it needs her. This reality should have been obvious from day one, but jealousy and short-sighted thinking prevented people from seeing it clearly. The ownership groups understand this better than players apparently do. They're telling teams to move ahead with free agency planning, despite contract uncertainty. This suggests they expect a deal eventually, and won't let union pressure freeze operations completely. The current legal framework allows them to extend qualifying offers under expired terms. While talks continue, this structure gives owners more leverage than players seem to realize. The players thought they had power because of improved revenue and attention, but that leverage only works if the attention source stays involved. When Clark leaves, their negotiating strength disappears instantly. Ownership can point to collapsing viewership and disappearing sponsors to justify rejecting union demand. The entire bargaining situation changes from pay us fairly based on recent growth to you'll be lucky if the league survives losing its main attraction. Union leadership with Nafisa Collier as vice president has created additional problems through obvious conflicts of interest. She runs Unrivaled, a competing basketball venture that benefits directly when the WNBA struggles. Her credibility during negotiations gets undermined by those business connections, and her public attacks on league management while promoting her own league has damaged the union's position. Now her league's ratings are absolutely terrible, and suddenly she's trying to seem reasonable and collaborative. The change is transparent and unconvincing. Kelsey Mitchell's free agency situation perfectly shows everything that's broken about this match. She's one of the league's top players and was crucial to Indiana's success playing alongside Clark. Her future should be straightforward to determine. Instead, it's caught up in broader negotiations that have nothing to do with her individual performance. This uncertainty affects her career choices and the Fever's ability to build on their achievements, all because league-wide discussions collapsed over issues that should have been resolved months ago. The Fever built something special. Clark Mitchell, Aaliyah Boston, Lexi Hull, Nalissa Smith, the roster chemistry and talent created basketball that fans genuinely got excited to watch. They made the playoffs and showed they could compete when everything clicked together. That momentum should fuel next season with roster additions and continued improvement. Instead, everything sits in limbo, because people who should have focused on growth got distracted by petty grudges and power struggle. Blaming Clark for contract failure represents the ultimate self-destructive move. She's the reason negotiations even have significance. Without her impact, we'd be talking about minor adjustments to existing terms instead of major revenue sharing and salary increase. She created the financial growth that makes player requests even remotely possible, and some players respond by making her the villain when talks break down. The short-sightedness is absolutely mind-boggling. The idea that Clark might accidentally destroy the WNBA isn't even far-fetched anymore. If she goes to Europe and viewership collapses, the economic model supporting operations falls apart. Television contracts get renegotiated for much less money. Sponsors reduce their involvement. Teams go back to losing money. Everything could fall apart quickly once the growth engine disappears. That's not Clark's fault. That's institutional failure by people who should have known better. The way Clark got treated will definitely be documented. ESPN will eventually make their documentary about how the WNBA had its most transformative star ever, and somehow created conditions so toxic she thought about leaving. How established players responded to success with bitterness instead of gratitude. How union leadership put private business interests ahead of collective welfare. How league administration failed to protect their most valuable asset. It'll be a textbook case of organizational dysfunction and wasted opportunity. Europe represents freedom from all that toxicity. No labor disputes. No resentful veterans delivering cheap shots. No media narratives questioning whether she deserves credit for the growth she obviously created. Just competitive basketball in environments where players and organizations actually appreciate her presence. The lifestyle differences matter a lot. European teams usually provide housing, cars, and amenities that ensure players are comfortable. The pace is more relaxed, without constant media scrutiny, that comes with being America's most polarizing athlete. The financial picture is more complex than it appears. WNBA salaries are capped, but European contracts can be extremely lucrative, especially for top talent. When you include benefits and reduced living costs in certain markets, the total package often exceeds what American teams can offer under current rules. And none of it depends on negotiations that might go on indefinitely. European clubs can make firm offers right now without questions about future salary structures. Clark's endorsement deals already dwarf her WNBA salary. Nike, Gatorade, State Farm. Those partnerships continue regardless of where she plays basketball. Her international profile might actually benefit from playing overseas, because it positions her as bigger than American women's basketball. she becomes a global superstar instead of someone limited by one league's dysfunction. This positioning could be valuable long-term for post-playing career opportunities. The worry spreading through WNBA circles is totally justified. They're realizing that the growth they celebrated might have been temporary, instead of permanent. It came from one player's impact, not from systematic improvements or collective achievement. Take away that player, and you're back to a league most fans still ignore. This truth should have been clear, but denial is powerful. When accepting reality means admitting you messed up, ownership understands this better than players clearly do. They're not scared of union pressure, because they know their position gets much stronger. If Clark leaves, they can point to crashed ratings to justify turning down player demands. They can argue the union miscalculated and destroyed the value they tried to capture. The whole negotiating dynamic flips once the recent growth driver removes herself. Players who spent 2 seasons resenting Clark are about to get an extremely expensive lesson about undermining your meal ticket. Their earning potential exists because she brought attention and investment to the league. Their bargaining power relies on continued growth she generated. When she leaves and everything crashes, they're the ones facing the biggest consequences. Clark has options, but the veterans whose careers depend on WNBA stability are the ones who should be worried. The regret is already starting to show, if you look closely. Players who downplayed Clark's importance are now quietly admitting viewership drops significantly without her. Media personalities who criticized her are concerned whether casual fans come back if the season gets delayed. Union leaders are discovering their negotiating power wasn't what they thought, but admitting mistakes requires humility they haven't shown yet. The fear is real because they finally understand what they're about to lose.